Good afternoon, everyone. I'm John Burklow, Associate Director for Communications and Public Liaison at the National Institutes of Health, and I understand many of you are watching online. And I'm here to talk about working with the media, or dealing with the media, or handling the media, however you'd like to say it. So if you're a scientist working in clinical research, it's likely that at some point in your career, you're going to interact with the media. You're going to talk to a reporter. Now, you may say, how could that be? I do work that nobody's interested, or it's very unlikely that it's going to happen. Well, I've been at NIH many years, and over I meet doctors, scientists who have encountered or have found themselves talking to the press without much preparation. They didn't realize it was going to happen. So I just flag it for you that even though it might seem remote to some, it could happen. So it's best to get ready for it. Now, it's not rocket science, but just like anything, it's a skill. And to do well in it, it's best to learn some basics and also just hear about some of the ground rules, unspoken rules, and some pitfalls that you could avoid. And since health and medicine is so popular with the public, obviously, it's popular with reporters as well, so you see it constantly in the media. So reporters want to talk to you, whether it's good news or bad news. Now, good news seems easier than bad news, possibly, but either way, you're going to end up, it's my recommendation that you address media queries. So I'll just go through, the purpose really today is to go through, what makes news, why reporters want to talk to you, how to get ready for an interview, what to do during an interview, what to say, how to say it, and just, again, some tips. And we'll take questions, I believe, afterwards. As I said, we're in the news every day. NIH, obviously, is in the news. Now, you may not see our name all the time, but we fund thousands of grants, thousands of studies, and so we may be, our research comes out through Johns Hopkins or Mayo, but it's NIH-funded research, and so we're covered constantly. I put STAT down here at the bottom of my slide. It's a new group that has been funded by the owner of the Boston Red Sox and the Boston Globe, and they've hired about 30 health and science reporters, and they're very focused on medical research, and so there's a good chance that you may end up talking to one of those reporters. Just brand new, just started in the last few months. I put this slide in here. It's kind of a little bit of a digression, but as you know, all the news coming through social media, and all I'll say is I encourage you to become familiar with talking to reporters through social media, whether Twitter chats or Google Hangouts, other ways, just to become familiar with them. Now, the first time you go to a Twitter chat, if you haven't been to one before, you may wonder, what the heck is going on? It's not immediately apparent, but as you do it, it becomes more comfortable. Dr. Collins, the NIH director, and I'm saying some of these things because I know people are online who may not know everything about NIH. So Dr. Collins does Twitter chats. Many of the directors, the scientists here, outside groups such as ABC News with Rich Besser, he does Twitter chats, attracts millions and millions of people. So something that, again, I encourage you to become familiar with. Also, you may be asked to join in on a blog or co-write a blog. Anything to do with social media, new media, I encourage you to become familiar with. Okay, so back to what makes news in science. Again, this is probably self-evident, but you'd be surprised at how often people come to me and say, oh, I want to do a press release on that, and I'll have to explain gently that's not really news. It's but I wouldn't put it as abruptly, but that's the bottom line. So what makes news? Well, obviously, big impact, and this is easy. So if you're doing something that's going to have an effect on millions of people, obviously the reporters are going to be interested in it. But also novelty. Oh, you're doing something that people had never heard of before, or didn't know they did that. I know anytime we have studies on regaining sight or regaining mobility, that gets people's attention, even though they may be small studies and not have a big impact, but they're novel. The unexpected. You may remember many years ago, the Women's Health Initiative found hormone replacement therapy actually increased a woman's risk rather than decreased. That was a huge shock and a great news interest from the reporters. Celebrity. Anytime you see a movie star or music, recording artist, anyone in the news, a politician gets a disease, you may get a call if that's your area. And we're sensitive about jumping on a bandwagon, talking about, especially if a celebrity gets a certain disease, but we will be there to provide expert perspective on that disease. Now, the last one is kind of the bread and butter, and what you're probably going to be involved in most often is published science, the peer-reviewed journals that's coming out all the time. Okay, why reporters want you? A game of quotes and experts. So reporters need you. They need interviews. They're not just writing essays. They need to bring their stories to life. And so your quote will help them do that. I have heard complaints from scientists saying, well, they called me and they want to talk to me today. And it's not that they just were lazy and just waited till the last minute. It's just that they're moving on a fast news cycle, especially if you're talking to somebody who works at Associated Press or Reuters. They may have to do 3 stories that day. And so they're just churning them out. So it's not that they waited till the last minute, usually. It's because that's the nature of their business. They're not trying to be rude. Also, your quotes, your perspective lends credibility to their story. They love to be able to quote an expert at NIH or from NIH about their story. Also, anytime there's any possibility of controversy, that makes their story that more interesting. Again, I've had scientists say, well, look what they put in there. It ran counter to what I said. Well, that's what they'll do. They rarely will write what I call a Valentine, or other people have called it just a perfectly positive story with no hints of controversy. They always have to try to liven it up and put in there. Now, the hope is that the controversy is all legitimate and who they talk to on the other side is equally as credible as you are. So why should you talk to reporters? And I've been asked that question, why should I talk to reporters? They never quote me right, or they quote me out of context, or they never use my stuff. I spent all day going down to the studio and did the taping. I was never on the show. That's all true. It's a percentage game, and it's a risk and an investment. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I would say most of the time it does. And I would say that most of the reporters you're working with in science and medicine are really good at their jobs, highly intelligent, motivated, and principled reporters, and they're not trying to waste your time. Now, sometimes you may not make it in the story for a number of reasons. We can talk about that a little bit later. But again, it's worth your time. One, obviously, it improves the accuracy. You're the expert, and so you'll be able to lend accurate information to the story. It also creates a favorable climate. I have seen where stories are that people have decided not to talk and you get a no comment. It kind of cools off the whole article, in a chilly way that's not exactly favorable. Also, we're the National Institutes of Health, taxpayer supported, and it is our obligation to explain how we're spending those resources. And finally, I have here, it brings context to stories. And that's something you really can do, especially if it's a study that the reporter thinks it's the greatest thing and they really want to put it on the front page. And you might be able to say, well, let me put it in context for you. Yes, that's important, however. Or they don't think it's much, and you can explain, yeah, this really is something to tout. So you can bring that expertise. Also, I will say that if you choose to engage, now you have some element, you can't tell the percentage, but you have some element of control over how the story comes out. But if you stay on the sidelines, you have zero control, and you're just shouting at the TV kind of thing. It's just that, you can't comment on how it came out because you didn't participate. Some things that just to keep in mind that what the public may not know about science, that every time you have a research result, it may also raise new questions, and that can sound frustrating to the public. Oh, well, I thought you had the answer. Yes, I have an answer, but it also leads to new questions. And also that legitimate controversies do exist. And controversy doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It's just the way it is. Also, research takes a long time. And Dr. Collins talks about the long arc of discovery. And that's an important message, I think, to get across, that we don't often have quick answers, especially to the most perplexing problems. Also, that health messages change over time. And so you have, you'll read about people complaining that, oh, one day it's coffee's bad for you, the next day it's not, it's good for you, and meat, not meat, all that. But again, you're trying to explain how research and our knowledge grows, and it can change, and it sometimes can contradict previous knowledge, but that's how it goes. Also, studies of large groups doesn't necessarily relate to an individual, and that you get into the whole area of risk and the other topics that are sometimes difficult to explain. How does that study pertain to me as an individual? So when a reporter contacts you, and I'll say they may call you, they may email you, you may run into them after you come off the stage after a talk. So you may run into them in a variety of ways. You may see them at the movie theater. I've had all these situations. So if a reporter approaches, what's the best thing to say? Sure, I can talk to you right now. Would you like to talk about? That might be a little too broad an opening. The second one, I've heard reporters tell me that, oh, I tried to talk to one of your scientists and they told me I wasn't allowed to talk. And that's never a good thing to say. First of all, we encourage people to talk to reporters. And the third one is like the happy medium. Happy to talk with you, but could you coordinate with our communications office? And then here's who you should call, not just leave it off as, can you call our office? But I think the circumstances will dictate what you do. If you come off the stage and a reporter comes to you, I just don't think it works to say, oh, sorry, can you call my communications office? I'll talk to you. Talk to them. Talk to them. And if you're getting, you're reading the situation and thinking, well, I'm not really ready, you can always say, hey, I've got to rush off right now, but can we follow up and talk later? But you can maintain a friendly relationship, not scurrying off or I'm not allowed to talk to you, which never goes over well with reporters for some reason. Okay, so that's the last one. So again, seeking advice. Before talking to a reporter, I encourage you to talk to somebody who's maybe experienced with talking to the press or an institute or center communications office. And your communications office should have experience with this particular reporter. And if they don't, they can call my office, and most likely we've had experience with the reporter because they all come to my office one way or the other. Also, is there an NIH position on the issue, whether a policy issue or some other stance before you go out with something? And then, are you the right person? That may not be your area of expertise, or it may be that, oh, actually, that's something that my director probably will want to take. And it could depend on the outlet, the news outlet, and the nature of the questions. But you don't have to reject it outright, but you want to find out, are you the person? Just a couple of things in terms of the journalistic trade. And you, excuse me, you've heard of all of these. Are we on the record? A reporter may ask you, are we on the record? Or they may just start talking to you and assume you're on the record. Also, people will say, oh, I'll talk on background. So they could be quoted, but they're not, their names aren't in it, and they could be an NIH official or scientist or a source. And the third one is kind of, off the record, where you're not even, the reporter can't use it in that story, but you're educating them on a topic, but it can't be connected back to you. Of the three ways, I just make it easy and suggest everybody always stay on the record. Otherwise, you're thinking, oh, no, I'm going to go on background. No, I'm going to go off the record. No, I'm going to back on record. And the reporter is like, what? Oh, where are we now? And you can confuse yourself as well. And so just keep it simple, and you're always on the record, which means they can quote anything you say for attribution. So they can say, John Burklow said, da-da-da-da-da. And just a minute about quotes. Let's see. Says, I think scientists are just stereotyping, generalizing. Scientists tend to be very comprehensive in their responses and nuanced, and want to make sure that people understand, well, however, and this and that. But think of your words as like a tape measure, and you're pulling it out. And as you talk, that tape measure gets longer and longer and longer. And you're assuming that that reporter knows which words to pick out or inches to pick out. But they may pick out the ones you didn't want them to use. And so it's a long way of saying, don't speak in paragraph form. And I know they talk about sound bites. You don't have to be so laconic that, what'd you say? But you can speak in more concise ways. And if you say a caveat, know that that might just be your only quote. And so your quote becomes, the caveat becomes a quote. It's not what I meant to say. So be very careful about what you're saying. And know that everything you've said is fair game, so to speak. I'd recommend writing down talking points. I like to put them on little note cards, just because the note cards can force you, not unless you write really small, it can force you to be more concise in your answers and not include so many exceptions or, well, on the other hand, this and that. Also, with the quotes, you don't want to get so colorful that it distracts the reader, but at the same time, you need to speak conversationally, so when you do get quoted, it sounds like a person's talking, as opposed to they somehow lifted it out of a journal article. So, and it's okay to use plain language and to boil it down. Your friends won't be laughing, as they read it. They'll know you know all the proper terms. Okay, so the other thing you can do is, instead of just saying, okay, a reporter wants to talk to me, let me get my thoughts together and my talking points together. And by the way, the talking points or sound bites, they'll help the reporter too. The reporter really appreciates a concise quote they can drop into a story. Back to interviewing the reporter. Ask them for their name and phone number and email. Also, you probably know this, but is it a newspaper, TV, radio, online source, and their deadline. Also, part of that deadline is you can ask them when do they expect to post or publish the story, so you know when it's coming out. But the deadline is really important to know. Also, they can tell you their storyline. You can ask them, well, what's your take on the story? Where are you going with the story? And specifically, what does the reporter want from you? Not that you can say, hey, what do you want from me? But you can get a sense of, are you looking for me to comment on X, Y, and Z, this area, not that area? In fact, we were just having a conversation today about Zika, actually, and would people talk about certain parts, and other people would talk about other parts of the issue. Some things to keep in mind: embargoes, and I'm sure you're all familiar with those, but it's important to know that first you have to ask the reporter if they honor an embargo. So let's say that the story comes out Friday at noon, but the reporter has been given the paper on Wednesday under embargo, and they have it, and they've read it, and they've called you to talk about it. You'd still want to be explicit. So do you honor the embargo? Yes. And then you can talk to them knowing that they won't post their story until 12 noon on Friday. They won't go ahead. But if you wait until the embargo lifts, as some people have thought in the past, then it's too late. The story's out there and you have not been able to participate in it. Now, with online, you could try to refresh a story or add to it, but ideally, you would talk before the embargo lifts. I also want to mention Freedom of Information, or FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, and our office has the Freedom of Information Act office within it. It's very helpful for me to have that there, because it's a sentinel. It tells me what reporters are covering and are interested in. And it is a law, so FOIA provides individuals with the right to access to records. So these are all records, and if you've not dealt with FOIA before, you're going to hear people say, oh, I'm going to stamp draft on that. It's not FOIAble if it has draft on it. Or I'm going to say pre-decisional. It's not FOIAble. Everything's FOIAble. Every record's FOIAble. The question is it releasable? And some draft documents can be releasable. Some pre-decisional can be releasable. So here are just some of the things that are releasable. IRB, minutes, anything on your computer, document drafts, your email, anything that can be retrieved is FOIAble. It's not scary about it. It's just something to keep in mind, especially if you're writing about a sensitive topic back and forth. Reporters will often FOIA all the emails on a particular topic. And so it results in sometimes, and they'll wait months, especially investigative reporters, but they'll get 10,000 pages. And but within those 10,000 pages, they may find some really interesting things depending on what people have put in their emails. So science in the news, as I said, there's always something going on. Over the last year, since the president announced the Precision Medicine Initiative, that's been in the news quite a bit, and especially for clinical researchers, even though it's not to that stage yet, you may get called, hey, what do you think about precision medicine? Zika, as I mentioned before, in the news every day. You may have heard of this cancer moonshot that the president announced during the State of the Union and put the vice president in charge of it. Opioids is in the news all the time. There's summits coming up on that. Translational research, people are asking, how are you moving from bench to bedside? And also new findings. You're always going to get asked about new findings. We have hundreds of press releases coming out of NIH every year, and thousands, literally thousands of media inquiries every month coming to NIH asking to talk to scientists about the latest findings. So the chances are that you end up talking to a reporter are, I think, pretty good. So just in summary, why talk to a reporter? Well, from NIH, it's our obligation. But also, the media is interested in medical research because the public's interested in medical research. And to take the long view, you want the public's support of medical research. You want them to feel positively inclined towards it. And part of that is to tell them the progress we're making, or not making, as it were, in finding cures, answers to diseases, different ways to study, to detect them. Also, talking to the reporters, you're lending credibility to a topic. Now, we can talk about, is every news outlet worth your while? Probably not every last single one, and that's something you'd want to talk to your communications office about. But by and large, as I said before, reporters who cover health and science are very credible reporters, highly skilled, and you can help them lend credibility to their stories. So how to do it? Again, plain language. Don't feel awkward about speaking plainly and in simple sentences. Always on the record, because it's just the easier way to do it. And last, don't be shy about asking for help. You may have never talked to a reporter in your life. If you've never done it, it's like playing any sport or any game. If you walk on the field, you have no clue of the rules. The chances of success aren't as great as if you would learn some of the rules of the game beforehand. So that concludes my talk. I, to be honest, can't remember if you take questions and answers anymore, since most of them are online. I defer to Joy or others. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Have a good evening.